Welcome to Planet Poet Words in Space. I'm your host, Sharon Israel, and thank you for listening today. I'm so excited because my guests today are the founding members of PRP, Poets Read Poetry. Pamela Manché Pearce began the group in her Garrison, New York living room in 2010 with a simple idea: to have poets gather and discuss the poems of other poets based on a predetermined theme, followed by a shop talk discussion of the members' own writing lives. Poets Jo Pitkin, Acciaro and Frank Ortega joined Pamela to form the original group, which disbanded in 2014 and was revived on Zoom in the summer of 2021. When I was invited to become the fifth member, which was very exciting for me, and I thank everybody for accepting me into this wonderful group. Pamela, who is our captain of PRP, will be leading our conversation. So take it away, Pamela.
Well, I'm always happy to take it away, especially if it's the ship that carries these poets with them. I love it. It's always wonderful for me. Tonight, our theme for tonight is Carl Sandburg. And one of the reasons that we picked him is not only is he a super distinguished American poet and writer in other genres and multiple award winner, but there's an issue about public domain when something, since we're reporting this for the Planet Poet on WIOX, and poetry needs to be in the public domain in order to be aired on radio show. Everybody doesn't know that. The rules about this are that the poems read without you having to pay a royalty in order to read the whole poem is that you would have the permission of the author or the publisher to read their work, and that would be for a contemporary poet, or public domain, which takes place 70 years after the death of the poet, or 95 years after the publication of the poem, if the rights are not renewed by the poet's heirs. And this is not developed to restrict poets. It was put in place in order to bring more poetry to the world while protecting intellectual property and money of the poets. So it's not a restriction, it's something to expand the reach of poetry. Since Carl Sandburg was born in 1878 and died in 1967, and many of the poems that we're going to be reading tonight are more than 100 years old, we're safe. So I think we can just proceed and have a wonderful time with Carl Sandburg. All righty. So as we always start, we discovered a poet named Saltus Saltus, or Andrew discovered Saltus Saltus. We're taking him on as our mascot, so to speak. So we open every meeting with Andrew giving an always beautiful reading of a poem of Saltus Saltus. Take it away, Andrew.
Okay. Babel, from The Witch of Endor and Other Poems, 1878 by Francis Saltus Saltus. In ways unknown to mortals, I regret the memory of that grand and haughty hour when the symmetric splendor of my tower awed the pale heaven that braves my anger yet. No stone of mine now crumbling can forget my palm-clad pomp in those great days of power, when my colossal summit made stars cower and shrink before my rising silhouette. Oh, despicable puny hordes of men! When I held sky and space within my reach, what souls had ye to be thus overcome? Why did your coward hands desert me when Jehovah in his wrath had blent all speech? Could ye not work, O fools, though ye were dumb?
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Andrew. Wow. I just noticed that he's born exactly the same year as Carl Sandburg. They were both born in I believe, or this poem was written in 1878. And what a difference.
They're like from different planets.
They are
Planet Poet.
Yes.
Well,
I love his coward hands.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Does anyone think he was up to his tricks with inventing words? Blent? Has anyone seen
Blent,
Blent?
touche, Frank.
Yeah,
Blent.
It's fabulous. It's fabulous.
I know.
I think he's also up to his old tricks of a sonnet, but
Oh, right.
Oh,
Right.
Yes, he's on this timeless Baudelarian cruise ship.
Yes. Yes.
right. Cruise to nowhere, cruise and cruise to everywhere at the same time. So, thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
All right, Andrew, you're up at bat for the first one for Sandburg with "Hope is a Tattered Flag."
Okay. Hope is a Tattered Flag, 1936, by Carl Sandburg. Hope is a tattered flag and a dream of time. Hope is a heart-spun word, the rainbow, the shadow in white, the evening star inviolable over the coal mines, the shimmer of northern lights across a bitter winter night, the blue hills beyond the smoke of the steelworks, the birds who go on singing to their mates in peace, war, peace, the 10-cent crocus bulb blooming in a used car sales room, the horseshoe over the door, the luck piece in the pocket, the kiss and comforting laugh and resolve. Hope is an echo. Hope ties itself yonder, the spring grass showing itself where least expected, the rolling fluff of white clouds on a changeable sky, the broadcast of strings from Japan, bells from Moscow, of the voice of the Prime Minister of Sweden carried across the sea in behalf of a world family of nations and children singing chorals of Christ, of the Christ child, and Bach being broadcast from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and tall skyscrapers practically empty of tenants, and the hands of strong men groping for handholds, and the Salvation Army singing, God loves us, hope is a tattered flag.
Very Sandbergian. It's
Oh, there you
beautiful.
go.
And it's so perfect for broadcast. It's all about broadcasting.
Yeah, he's got
Fantastic.
that song poet thing, I think that's part of his accessibility is his lyricism, but also his kind of American invincible hopefulness. Or there's that thing, like I said, I've had read something about that. He's sort of the Frank Capra versus
Yes, yes.
versus Preston Sturges.
yes, Preston Sturges.
Versus Stanley Kubrick.
You know,
Yeah,
I heard
we're Ford and Godard. So
I heard
and
both Whitman and Dickinson here. A little Whitman in the attitude, and just the echo of hope is the why can't I think of the title? Hope is the thing with feathers.
Feathers.
yeah.
And I also think this is written or published in 1936, which is the darkest days of the Depression.
Yes.
And there in the line, for example, the rolling fluff of white clouds on a changeable sky. It's all of this that things can change and things can, the rainbow. He has so many things, about hope and about, that this can end and we can. There's light that's that.
To continue on that, Pamela, the line towards the end, and tall skyscrapers practically empty of tenants, that is our world now, post-COVID, with most downtowns.
Right.
And so there it is in full circle from 36 to 23.
And also the line, the 10-cent crocus bulb blooming in a used car sales room.
Oh, yeah.
I had to stop and say, now in 1936, how much would a 10-cent crocus bulb be in relation to our money now? And it would have been dear. It would have been very dear at that time, especially in the middle of a depression. So that was a really interesting line. And he picked a used car sales.
Mm-hmm.
It's very incantorial. And all the anaphora, the repetition of the first line, of the first word of the line, from hope to the, across, and he ends with hope as he started the poem. It's formal. The broadcast of strings, that's a very formal way of saying something.
Yes.
But it has this hog butcher of the world, that kind of exclamation. And he also goes from high to low, literally, the evening star inviolable over the coal mines. And I think that's where the hope comes in. There's always something to be looked up to, and the homey thing, the everyday thing is elevated by that, I think.
He also has love. I mean, the birds go on singing to their mates in peace, war, peace. I mean, that's love. That's commitment to a partner, a family, any of that.
A natural class consciousness in a way. He's
Exactly.
he's aware of the bootstraps without the pulling up.
And I think I liked the fact that this poem encapsulated a lot of his themes, as I did a quick survey of his work yesterday. But, he does have all that industrial imagery about the steelworks and the tall skyscrapers being kind of urban, but he's got all the prairie kind of imagery too. And then he threw in Sweden.
Right.
Where he's from, or his family's from.
That was a wonderful choice, Andrew. Thanks for having that.
Yes.
There's
Also a strange hopefulness in his industrialization. His kind of like praising and celebrating that. It's different. It's interesting to compare him with Frost, and then to compare them both with Eliot.
Well, that's another PRP.
Yeah.
That could be a wonderful. It could be a wonderful evening that we could do. Okay, my turn this is October. This is 1918. It was in the issue of Poetry Magazine. It's called Autumn Movement. Carl Sandburg, Autumn Movement. I cried over beautiful things, knowing no beautiful thing lasts. The field of cornflower yellow is a scarf at the neck of the copper sunburned woman, the mother of the year, the taker of seeds. The northwest wind comes and the yellow is torn full of holes. New beautiful things come in the first spit of snow on the northwest wind, and the old things go, not one lasts. Thoughts?
I love how modern this is. I mean, when you just said 1918, that took me by surprise, because the structure of it, which of course listeners can't see, it's almost like a little prose poem with those really long lines. And then just the imagery is very modern and very clean and crisp. I mean, it's so pretty, this poem, even though it's sad.
Yeah, another cinematic illusion. It's almost like Ingmar Bergman, from his home world.
It's very imagistic. And I don't know if anybody would call him an imagist, but he's very imagistic. The field of cornflower yellow is a scarf at the neck of the copper sunburned woman. I also, there's an echo of the poem, your poem, Andrew. Hope is a tattered flag. He talks about tearing. The yellow is torn, full of holes. New beautiful things come in the first spit of snow on the northwest wind. Very, very simple. Beautiful.
Weaving of the raggedness and the wistfulness of nature and everything. Yeah.
I have a question for Sharon. Do you think movement is a musical reference in the title?
It could be. It probably is. I really didn't think about that before. He makes no other allusion to music, and I don't know if, because it's a very simple poem, it's got 3 stanzas. Each stanza is greater than the one before, has more syllables in it, which I'll say more about later when we talk about an homage he made to another poet. I think it's movement into winter, which is pretty somber. He says he cried, which is in the past, and then it's everything else is in the present. So there is quite there is movement there.
But this is that transition from autumn into winter is such a subject for poets from
Yes.
beginning, from the beginning, that's a very, very powerful transition. And usually it's associated with so much sadness. But in here, again, I mean, don't forget, 1918 has been a horrible, horrible time. All the war, blood,
Right.
and just a terrible turmoil in the world. And here he's saying new, beautiful things come. So he's talking about that elements of hope in these times of transition and suffering and suffering.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just the closing, all true, the cycle of human life and natural life and everything, but he still ends with the not one lasts,
right,
because you do have the pain of the literally all the dead of World War I, etc., which was the peak of that time. Autumn Movement. It's a great title, by the way.
It is. I like the way he's not afraid to repeat words. He repeats beautiful twice in the first stanza, and then he repeats it again in the third. It's just very emphatic. It strengthens the poem. I think he's underrated. I think he needs to be back in the pantheon.
We're helping him. We're lifting him up tonight.
Underrated with the juggernaut of modernism,
Sure.
Because even imagistic ideas, these ideas I think came from the actual rise of the image, and it was already happening before it became self-conscious. And with modernity, it became self-conscious. So you have imagistic poets who label themselves or are labeled imagistic, but that's a self-consciousness versus the imagism that was in poetry coming to the fore from the flow of everything. I'm going to go off in that. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Andrew. That's something to talk about also in more. I mean, that's a beautiful
marginalia topic of PRP.
There we go. We love it. We're going to work the margins too. We'll work everything.
I want to throw out that, keep in mind, I don't know how his work was towards the end. He lived a long time, and so maybe there was a change in his work so that the modern groupiness didn't take to it. But you can't deny that these early ones are just so direct and clear and still completely powerful, a century old. I mean, it's right here. So it is very interesting that he's been buried. I mean, sorry the expression, but honestly, yeah.
Well, not tonight. He's alive and well obviously with us. And Frank, you're next. All right. The Red Guns.
Right. So here we go. It's a segue right from the World War I stuff. This poem was first published in November 1914, which is basically the start of World War I. And it was in a section of his Chicago poems, his famous book. It was broken up into sections, which I didn't realize till I redelved into it. And this section was called the War Poems. And you have to keep in mind that when he wrote this poem, it was the beginning of World War I, and I don't think anyone could have imagined that it would run for 4 straight years the way it did with all the blood, because he's writing about it at the beginning, and yet this is what he wrote. Among the Red Guns, and then in italics right under the title. After waking at dawn one morning when the wind sang low among dry leaves in an elm, among the red guns, in the hearts of soldiers running free blood, in the long, long campaign, dreams go on. Among the leather saddles, in the heads of soldiers, heavy in the racks and kills of all straight fighting, dreams go on. Among the hot muzzles in the hands of soldiers, brought from flesh folds of women, soft amid the blood and crying, in all your hearts and heads, among the guns and saddles and muzzles, dreams go on. Out of the dead on their backs, broken and no use anymore, dreams of the way and the end go on.
Incredible.
Yes. Oh, please. Thoughts?
Why are the guns red?
My question, Sharon. There you go. I agree.
Anybody
Any-
know? Any thoughts?
Well, on just one level, the fire spewing from them,
Yep.
but also
that.
the
Heat.
end result, which is the blood, that comes from their end, other end.
So
I-
I'm sorry. There's movement implied, like an
Right.
autumn movement. That's the movement is not really happening. It's implied, or it's
Yes.
I thought that I loved, I mean, it's a wonderful device how dreams go on, and then he doesn't use the word dreams on the last standard, dreams go on, and at the end, dreams. I love how he used that. I mean, I think that's a device really worth thinking about as I do my own work, that he really, and it feels like that. It feels like this kind of rhythm of marching and moving forward.
Marching.
Marching and
Yes.
marching, that kind of military rhythm that that I found as I read this poem.
Which is shadowed by futility too.
Yeah.
I'm sure if someone could scan this, we would know what the beats are. I think it's, I don't know what the meter is because I'm just not going to scan it right now.
Right.
But I think that's what helps with that. It's very emphatic.
Right.
I know I just flagged a line I liked just because it has cool consonants in it, but among the guns and saddles and muzzles. So I like those bells in there.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is a particular form. I don't think so. I think it's just his own, he made up some form here.
It's a little weird, a little strange. In the hearts of soldiers, running free blood in the long, long campaign. So the blood is running. Are the soldiers running? It's an odd syntactical thing,
Right.
but effective, very effective.
Very effective.
I feel like it's that
Almost
weird.
running like running guns.
Yeah. And blood, running free blood, freely running blood. I mean, it's another way to say that.
Mm-hmm. I also thought it was very interesting that it's like Frank's hope is a tattered flag. The dream goes on and it changes.
Yeah, that's
the closing line again, like Pamela said, comes as such a surprise, but it's so powerful. Just stop again and take a look.
Right.
Dreams of the way. Okay, that's plenty. Dreams of the way and the end go on. I mean, just think about that. Dreams of the end also go on.
Yeah.
It's so heavy,
it's like Tantalus,
Right.
The harder you try, the further it gets away, kind of thing. Right. I think he's laboring under the pain of experience to find an axis that is authentic, and yet maintains some way, in another hand, hope.
Yeah.
Do we have another second, or
we'll give you a second. Yes, we'll find a second. Sharon, go for it.
I was just saying, Joe, I'll just be quick. It's sort of the soldiers are slogging on. There's movement, but there's a lot of static, and that's because it's got after waking at dawn among the red gloves, guns running free. It doesn't. It goes backwards.
Right.
Soft amid the blood, dreams go on. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. That was very worth that 3 seconds or whatever.
I was just going to ask who remembers the biography here, but he did, in fact, actually experience war. I think 1898, right? Spanish War.
Spanish American War.
Yeah. So he actually is speaking from some position of experience here.
All right, Joe, now that you're talking, you can just continue and read us Summer Stars. That's a perfect segue.
Oh, I chose this lovely little 7-line poem that was published in, I don't know exactly the date of the poem, but it was published in Smoke and Steel in 1920. And this is Summer Stars. Bend low again, night of summer stars. So near you are, sky of summer stars, so near, a long-armed man can pick off stars, pick off what he wants in the sky bowl. So near you are, summer stars, so near, strumming, strumming, so lazy and hum strumming. So there was a lot I liked about this. I just jump in first, but I like the fact that since he was also into music, and at some point, we'll talk about that later. But I thought of the musical aspects of this poem I really liked, but also I knew about the anaphora, the repetition of the first parts of the lines. But what I didn't realize until I did a little looking up is that it's got something called epistrophe. It's that end repetition, which I'm now wanting to use in my own work. But the summer stars, summer stars, summer stars, and the strumming, that's actually a thing, right? So it's always nice to know the literary device that's going on. But I liked it. I just liked the fact that the stars seem so close, you could pick them right out of the sky.
It seems almost like a persona poem. It seems like it's in some kind of vernacular. It's a little different from what he usually writes. So near you are, so near. Pick off what he wants in the sky bowl. A long-armed man can pick off stars.
What a wonderful, and what a fabulous image that is. And Jo, Jo was the first person to submit to all of us to send her choice for this particular theme. And I went, go Jo, because Jo and I both love images. Images. We just both are great fans of them. And I said, okay, Jo, you're playing my song here. And I also thought when I looked at the date that if this is 1920, 1920 World War I was over and the world was really coming alive to beautiful things and to having fun again and enjoying themselves. I mean, on the back of this horrible, horrible war that had happened. But this is just to me, just a beautiful poem about being alive and enjoying the natural world and putting it together in a poem to be enjoyed. Versus some of the other poems that we've heard already. So I was just delighted with this.
I totally imagine him one leg hanging off of a boxcar with an acoustic guitar.
Right.
Exactly. Right. Just enjoying himself.
Or under the trees, like in the prelude of the poem we just read before. Just looking up at the sky, waking from a sleep or a dream.
Right. And so lazy and humstrumming.
Yeah, lazy.
That's summer. That's what summer should be.
Isn't that a great word, humstrung?
Humstrumming.
Humstrumming.
To me, as I work on my own poetry, this is a wonderful little package. I mean, he does a lot in these short lines.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it's the opposite of the humstrumming is different from humdrum, which is the word we all know.
Right.
Yes.
So it's like a wonderful twist on that.
I want to say to all the people out there who fear retirement, go forth and become humstrung.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yes, well, we're going to get something from AARP, I'm sure, very soon. Would you like to humstrum? So this comes from this poem. It's a wonderful line. It's absolutely a wonderful line.
I think
it's resisting being hamstrung. That's
right.
That's right.
I just want to throw in too that the 7-line form. I think I had written to you all that I was trying to figure out, is this particular form? I didn't know there were so many 7-line forms out there. But I just remember a quote from some of the bio I read on him that he just said he was going to go his own way. And that's another reason to like him, because he did. He just sort of intuitively found his way to these different forms.
Yes.
And also this one seemed really unlike the poems I knew of his, like the really long, sprawling poems about industrial, America. So I liked the contrast, this one.
I like it too. And I want to add, I have Jo's covering note, and I want to read, here are a few forms with 7 lines, which Jo pointed out for us. Rhyme royal, stepinel, and hepistitch. Is that correct? So these are 7 lines. Who knew?
Oh, no.
That's what she says. Who knew? Well, now
no.
we know. So it would be fun to have a theme of forms. We've never done that, but that could be fun for us to do.
Yeah, and I wrote to Joe that there's another form that Akhmatova made very famous, the sevenling.
Sevenling.
And, and that's you love something and you hate something, and then you make a comment about it on the seventh line. It's
I think
I added that to our list. So
what's great about this too is to know how much you can get and pack in to a 7-line poem.
Yeah.
Not using even all the many different words you could use. I mean, he really did repeat so many. Anyway,
it does, and that's for me again. That's a great tool. That's a great device and how he makes that work for him.
I find this poem very it's very spiritual. Also, it can be found in some Epic canon of Native Americans or anywhere. It's got that feeling to it, that beauty.
But also the line, expanding on that, Sharon, what you said is when you say that, I think like the line "so near, a long-armed man can pick off stars." I mean, that feels like that. That feels one of those that you can read. He's reaching for the stars, and this is part of a way of living in this natural world and being inspired by it. So,
right, and I feel that the next line, "pick off what he wants in the sky bowl," is completely of that too. That you have the world again, and you can actually take your, you're not going to go off to war. You're going to go into a life. There's a chance. There's hope. It's such a huge theme. Those two lines actually right there. Those two.
Sorry, go ahead.
The long-armed man also just occurring to me is very godlike in a way.
That's what I mean. That's your articulating.
A trickster or some god in a pantheon.
But World War I was supposed to be the war to end all wars, right? They really figured that was never going to happen again. So
we're still waiting. Yeah,
I know we're still waiting.
That end of the other poem there about the dreams and the endlessness of the end. But also there's a triangle between Whitman, Sandburg, and Kerouac.
Really.
Yeah, they all are somehow encompassing the largeness of America, everything included.
Oh, I'll go with that.
Positive.
Ginsberg,
I'll go with that. Absolutely on that.
Kerouac was constantly doing that. He was looking at everything and accepting it and taking it in. Whitman, obviously, larger than itself, and I think Sandburg resonates with that, and that's why I think a lot of this resonates with. If I can find the right word, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but Americana. It is kind of the conscious thoughts of America as itself, or the United States of America as itself. Well, I don't know if we have time for this, but I wanted to talk about somehow the dialectic of the fear of a poet. Each poet has a particular fear. Poe's fear was being buried alive or oblivion, literal and metaphorical. And I think in some ways, maybe if you had to search for that fear in Sandburg and the others, it would be doubt. Doubt is kind of the fear that America has. It doubts itself, its identity, what was, what is, and what will be, all of that. Anyway, sorry for that marginalia.
Oh, it's very.
I like the marginalia is what makes this interesting. So one of the things, the other thing is when we have a poet who has such a long career, it's very interesting to see these. We've been through this before. Is to see them develop, and especially if it's an American poet, where I am more familiar with American history than any other history. That watching them go through these different periods of history and how they respond to it and how they make their art as their life is progressing. So very, very interesting. Good choice. Jo, I want to hear what Jo has just.
Just quick. I was going to just say what Andrew just said. I thought was really pretty amazingly perceptive, because I wouldn't have thought of it as doubt, but I'm wondering if that's from his status of a child of immigrant parents.
Mm.
I read something interesting that his parents, when they came here, there were so many people with their I think their real last name was Johnson.
Yes.
And he was
yes.
like, the parents changed their name so they wouldn't be like,
Sandburg, right.
yeah. But
Hmm.
I just thought, you don't know what that sort of feeling of displacement might have, given to him, right? I mean,
Sure.
so that idea of his fear is doubt. Liked it.
Thank you. Okay, I need to move on. Sharon, you are next with Adele Crapse.
Yes. And
Adelaide, sorry.
yes. And she has the poem's name is Adelaide, and I think it's pronounced Crapsey or Crapsey.
Unfortunately, it is.
Which is an unfortunate.
Yeah,
I think
that's what.
And
Yeah.
that didn't weigh in on her buried reputation. Now, I did not do my homework. This poem, though, is from Cornhuskers, which I think is one of his most famous collections. So this is a poem about another poet, Adelaide Crapsey. Among the bumblebees in red-top hay, a freckled field of brown-eyed Susans, dripping yellow leaves in July, I read your heart in a book, and your mouth of blue pansy. I know somewhere I have seen it rain-shattered, and I have seen a woman with her head flung between her naked knees, and her head held there, listening to the sea, the great naked sea, shouldering a load of salt. And the blue pansy mouth sang to the sea, Mother of God, I'm so little a thing. Let me sing longer, only a little longer. And the sea shouldered its salt in long gray comers, hauling new shapes on the beach sand. And I think that should have been, and the sea shouldered its salt in long gray combers, hauling new shapes on the beach sand. And I looked the word up, and it means breakers.
Mhm.
And I originally pronounced the B, but it's like beachcombers. That's the
Right.
word. Such a little used word in
Mhm.
context.
I had to look it up too, because I thought he was up to his Sandburg tricks of creating a word, but not so.
I found this poem very difficult. I didn't really understand it very well. Beautiful imagery.
Well,
And-
again, the modernism are to me, it seems like it could have been in a magazine today, not in 1917.
Yes.
It really shocks me.
This was
But-
1917. Thank you. My God, that's
Yeah.
pretty amazing. And I knew nothing about Adelaide Crapsey, and she invented a form. Speaking of forms, it's all our work is so involved with his playing with form, and she invented the cinquain, which is 22 syllables in 5 lines, and each line, as he did with the early poem, The Autumn Movement, each line, the subsequent line has more syllables than the previous line. And then she ends with a 2-word syllable. I know we're not supposed to do that, but I have one example of hers, if we can.
That's fine.
It's
We
a-
can break rules.
well,
We're rule breakers here. Go ahead.
Niagara scene on a night in November. How frail above the bulk of crashing water hangs, autumnal, evanescent, wan, the moon. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, it's
Wow.
amazing.
Her work.
Wow, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That has a little
But it's
flow to
I
it.
mean, it's Japanese also. I mean,
Yes.
it's so they're there. All of them are in
Yeah.
there.
The
Yeah.
same Tatanka, it's this woman is like, I don't know who she is. It's incredible. So
What was the thing that she the sustain you said? What,
The cinquain.
Cinquain. It's spelled Cinquain, pronounced Cinquain, and
Cinquain.
it was her interest in rhythm and meter led her to create a unique variation on the cinquain. But I thought she invented it. It's a French
Wow.
form, I
I'm
guess.
gonna have to call on our captain. Starboard, fire off the cinquains.
That's great.
Ouch.
A 5-line form of
Ouch.
22 syllables. Is that hysterical? This is the American cinquain.
Right.
So I guess it's a cinquain, but you know,
Our species.
who's that? Who's
We can American. But I love that she captured Sandberg's imagination. I
Yeah.
know she really
Yes.
did, and that's very exciting.
Yes,
You
I think he was maybe obsessed a little. But
No.
what's with the blue pansy mouth? Does anybody have any idea about that?
That's
I
great.
felt that
Blue
that
pansy
was
mouth is just great. Yeah.
I felt it was illness. I couldn't, when I read that, I thought of this, like being very ill, and when somebody's or dead, when your lips turn blue. I mean, that's where I went with that. I could be completely wrong.
No, I think that's very, very astute because she died of tuberculosis
Yeah.
at a very young age.
Boom.
That's it.
That's
You
what I
got it.
thought.
Thank you.
And
And
Yeah,
she was
the-
young, and
the-
she had a real struggle, from what I understand. Her health was always a problem. Joe, go. What you're
I was just
You have
going to
to
ask
say.
another question, but this poem is not written as a cinquain, correct? I
No,
mean,
no.
I would have thought maybe he would have done that, but okay.
Interesting, right?
And I mean, you guys were talking about, that he seemed a little obsessed. There's also a little bit of eroticism in that third stanza.
Yes.
Mhm.
naked. Yeah.
Yes.
The line, first of all, yes, blue lips is never good. And then pansy, definitely, I picture that almost a Victorian era kind of, floral decoration by a casket. But the line, the great naked sea shouldering a load of salt. Like, guys, that's stunning. Talk about modern. Wait a minute.
Right.
It's almost because you're separating the salt out from the ocean in a way, right? And so the sea is bringing you what? A load of salt. Salt has all those attributes that are emotional and historical. You can take it however you want. Tears, right? You can go anywhere with this. Pain and then we're still not clear why or what this is about. And then it's that blue mouth again, and it's singing. And I honestly didn't know what was going to come. I didn't know if it was going to be, I love John and I wish he'd come, or I miss my child. No, look what comes out of that blue pansy mouth. I mean, whoa. This is someone dying, asking for just a tiny bit more time. And here comes the sea with its giant loads of salt. Woo! Sorry. This is a really good, unexpected one.
It's amazing. I also, that third stanza, I feel how cold she must be. It's a very exposed
Back in the blue, just blue alone. The blue lips, but the whole, it makes you,
shaking.
Right.
What a comparison to her and the naked sea. I also think that Sandburg allowed her to sing a little longer.
Thank you, Sharon. I mean, bringing this poem and bringing her to life was really, was just terrific. So
Thank you. It was such a delight to read this and to find out about her. Probably if she lived now, she would have changed her name.
Right, I think so. I think it's unfortunate. So, do we have one last comment before we have to end this part? Frank, somebody was saying something?
Yeah,
I'm
just dying to point out again, just from the point of view of being a writer, is that again, this, I don't know exact the writing, but it was published April 17. It was published in the middle of that whole wartime that we've been talking about, and yet the form of it, the whole way of it, is so different than the Red Guns or that's all. It's so different, and yet it's that same era he's writing in, stylistically.
Yeah, it is. Well, all of this is revelation, so that's a lovely way to end it. Thank you, Frank, for that's Frank's going to have the last word on that. Thank you. So we have a few minutes. We have a few minutes left, and I for one am so delighted I'm always delighted to be with you. But I'm also thinking about that time that we went up to WIOX. We were in the radio, actually the only time in the radio station, and we had a wonderful time.
It was
Sharon,
great.
thank you for inviting us then and for this time too.
Oh, you're so welcome. I feel so privileged to be part of the group. And you guys were with me practically from the beginning. My show started at the end of 2012, and you were on in what, October of
October 23rd,
2013.
2013.
But that's when you all came up. But
Yes.
from the beginning, you were, it's sort of for a couple of years.
Coffee
There was-
houses, museums, living rooms. Yep.
Yeah, you were everywhere, and you also appeared. I think you took turns appearing as a poet read poetry PRP member every month. And
That right?
Sharon, but Sharon, not just the fifth member, you are the magical fifth wheel that makes all the wheels turn.
oh, thank you.
The fifth wheel. Now we can live on the road. Thanks.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. And now that's how we're doing this again, because we're all from different places. I'm from Roxbury in the Catskills. Joe's from Cold Spring. Pamela's from Manhattan. And Andrew, you are from, where are you from?
Peekskill.
Peekskill.
On the
Bruce got
Hudson,
both
the
books.
Hudson
Go
River.
to
It's
Bruce
the
got
mighty
both
Hudson
books.
River.
Yes, and
Hudson River inspired so many.
Frank is
That's
on
right.
his way from Wisconsin to Colorado via Kansas, correct?
Exactly.
Well, he can't, soon he'll say we're not in Kansas anymore, but right now he's actually in Kansas.
And don't forget, Frank Baum lived in Peekskill. He was sent to the military academy there, right on the Hudson River. He hated
Gorgeous.
it. He hated that place. That school. That's why the winged monkeys behave the way they do. He was just getting back at his fellow classmates.
Frank is our true on-the-road poet.
Yeah.
We never know where he's going to appear next.
The time when we were up there in person, Frank couldn't be there. Frank was calling in from Key West from a phone booth.
That's right.
He was
Yes.
I think
Phone
he was
booth. Oh boy,
I
remember
mean,
that.
we could hear the traffic. We could hear pedestrians passing by, children.
And-
It was very authentic. It was very authentic experience.
Frank keeps it real.
And the problem is that now all the great superheroes have nowhere to change.
That's true. That's true.
That's funny. But you guys have been with me from the beginning. You helped shape the show. And then after, I think when you stopped meeting for a while, then Pamela continued it with being the show's poet at large,
Right.
which she does to this day. So I
Right.
thank
So
you.
wonderful.
And Captain.
So we're
and Captain.
united. We're really
Capitan.
part of this.
Well, interesting, the relationship between WIOX and Planet Poet and us here today is that, this is how we learn about new poets, because whenever I tune in to listen to the show, haven't been able to recently, but I was a loyal listener for
You are
many
an
years.
incredibly loyal listener.
And I always learn about some new poet who might be in the Hudson Valley, might not, but just very interesting that that's the same thing we're doing with PRP as well. We're revisiting poets or getting to know poets we didn't know before. So,
But Joe, you happen to know almost every poet that's been on.
no.
It was amazing.
She
What
does.
are we talking about? Oh, yes, he was in my. Yeah, he told me this,
That's
and
right.
Let me tell you the dirt
That's
on
right.
that one.
So, and as Planet Poet, I learned something every month. So now that we've had a love fest, as we love to have a WIOX PRP love fest, I think it's time to say thank you, Sharon. Thank you, everybody, and we're out of here.
Thank you. And thank you
Thank
all.
you.
It's been
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
absolutely wonderful.